In just the last few days, the entire crypto market has dropped over 15%, leading many to believe that the bulls are about to be chewed up and spit out like a used napkin. But is this just the beginning of a much bigger bear market? Or in fact, did all of the baby shrimp investors just get shaken out? And did they hand over all of their hard-earned cryptocurrency to the whales? So if you're new here and did not get shaken out, and even if we go lower from here, which as I've discussed is a possibility, you in fact will be scooping instead of dumping, hit that like and subscribe for daily cryptocurrency videos. And without any further ado, wow, you're gonna wanna make sure you watch this video from front to back because we're gonna be talking about a lot of things, huge things, specifically also about this dump and exactly what I believe is going on, and show you something that might leave you shaking and crying on the floor like a little baby. So one of the first things I want to highlight is this. We see that CZ, look at this tweet. Take note of when this was tweeted 4 years ago, saying, waiting for the headline that Bitcoin crashes from over 100K to let's say 85K. This is 4 years ago. Not only is this dip not impressive or scary or hard to predict. I mean, CZ predicted it. Most people actually that have been in the space knew the very first time we broke 100K, we would get a rejection below it at some point that would scare a lot of people and shake a lot of people out. Just like what happened at 10,000, just like what happened the first time Bitcoin broke 1,000. And the craziest thing to me is that over the last 24, 48 hours, I have seen some insane sentiment. I have seen some panicking, right? In my comments, I have comments, right? I get hundreds of comments a day and I read them all. Do you know how many people I read that said that the Bitcoin bull market was over? How many people are fearful? How many people saying, oh, next is 80K, then 60, and so on and so forth, and we won't even have a shot at going up again until 2 to 4 years from now? How out of tune, I mean, my goodness, man, how out of tune with the market do you have to be to think that that's like the most realistic scenario? With Bitcoin still sitting right around 100K, the most pro-crypto US administration in history set to take office in just about a month, and a possible strategic Bitcoin reserve. Are you kidding me? I don't know, man. It's hard. It's hard to it's hard to even address some of this craziness. Now, one huge thing I want to talk about that's a little more specific to this recent dump is that apparently Jerome Powell he made a big no-no. As you can see, we got today's economic data, and during his FOMC speech, he spoke in terms of massive stagflation and data was trending up. But with today's data, it actually supports the thesis of inflation going down, which would require continuous rate cuts to kind of counter the risk of deflation. And bottom sniper Eric on X talking about the fact that he was very hawkish in his speech. Is it possible that he was over-exaggerating or misrepresenting the data that he had access to before the rest of us? Is it possible he was misrepresenting the data to manufacture a bigger dump, like we saw with Bitcoin, like we saw with the SPX? You can see right here, this was a daily candle, a 3% dump, massive daily candle. Is it possible that he was misrepresenting the data? Is it possible that, as you can see when I pulled this up, with some of this PCE and things trending in actually the right direction, was he maybe just trying to spook the market a little bit, maybe trying to give some cheaper entries? Again, I don't know, it's all speculation, but he had access to this data before you and I. And that's important to remember when you look at this. And specifically, when you look at the rhetoric from the FOMC meeting, which very clearly had an impact on the markets. Basically, the rhetoric was that we are going to be spending all of 2025 with a maximum at this point of 2 rate cuts, potentially 0. That spooked the market. That spooked the stock market. It spooked the crypto market. The DXY started rallying on that news, right? You can see it right here. But actually, as of today, with this PCE data, what is the US dollar doing? It's actually trending down because maybe the whole FOMC speech, the whole tone around the FOMC meeting was a fake out. It's a possibility, right? Because that's what things are looking like today. If you rewind 2 days ago, or even actually if you rewind like 12 hours ago, oh my gosh, the amount of bearishness, the amount of people that I saw in my comments and other comments saying, oh my gosh, we're done. So much for the Santa Claus rally, all this stuff. My gosh, man, just you're outing yourself as a complete beginner to base your entire thesis over the next 1 month to 6 months based on one dump that took about 24, 48 hours. And we're going to talk more about the dump, but people really need to look at the data before they completely lose their mind and form a long-term opinion. People are easily swayed by their emotions, and I've seen it. The last 48 hours have been a textbook case in people giving into their emotions and just losing their minds and thinking, wow, we're done, it's over. Remember when people complained about Pumptober, the beginning of October, when the first couple days were not going so good and people thought, oh, Pumptober's done. But then October ended up actually being pretty good. And Income Sharks is saying here, he's seeing the same thing with the Santa Claus rally. Watch how fast markets go back up when a government shutdown is avoided, stocks recover, and crypto runs back up. We've seen it play out so many times, and the people that continuously get shaken out by their emotions over and over again, that's exactly why most people aren't successful in markets, because they're completely dominated by their emotions, and they can't have a perspective more than 24 hours in the future. They have the inability, they can't take themselves out of an emotional moment and make rational choices. They're victims of their psychology over and over and over again. And it's a hard skill to learn for most people to not be a victim of your emotionality. But if you want to be successful, you have to stop being a baby every time the market goes down a little bit. You can see here, the Bitcoin daily RSI has reset to levels last seen when Bitcoin was $60,000 US. The very first pullback in 2021 also hit these levels on the RSI before a 3x price surge to $64,000. That would take Bitcoin, if we saw a similar move, to nearly $300,000. So just keep that in mind. When we're comparing this cycle to the last, I do believe we're in something like this, where over the next couple of months, I think we're going to trend up massively. I think we're going to go up a lot more. And I think people need to stop being so scared every time we get potentially a manufactured dump, which we just saw a couple days ago. If that was the case, many people are probably kicking themselves right now. We also see officially 1 million Bitcoin has now been spent on long-term holders. About 1 million Bitcoin, 14.2 to 3.2 million. Yesterday, the long-term holders spent 70,000 Bitcoin alone, which is the fourth biggest sell-off in the past 3 years. However, the market is clearly absorbing this extremely well, meaning, yes, we got a dump, a cataclysmic dump, but the price of Bitcoin doesn't look too bad. It has set us back about a week in terms of our price. It's not even so far that big of a deal. Now, we could go lower, and I've talked about that multiple times over the last few videos, but yeah, we'll continue with this and then we'll get more into that. But as you can see, the S&P 500 is now the most oversold that it's been since September of 2022, with a staggering 36% of stocks trading with an RSI below 30. Buy when others are fearful. That's what the smart money does. And the shrimp money, the baby money, cries on comments on Twitter and YouTube. Okay. I can promise you one thing. How many billionaires are crying in my comments? 0. It's never billionaires crying in the comments. Keep that in mind. We also see the last election, we had a 29% sell-off before Christmas, and then you can see what happened after. There was a lot of panic back then too. You can see it was the dump before the pump. As always, man, it's always the same. It's like crazy, and people never learn. It blows my mind. Incoming White House and AI and crypto czar David Sachs saying here that Bitcoin has the potential to be the next internet, the internet of money. He's buying. Okay. Fundamentally, that's pretty bullish, right? We have some crypto people coming into power in just a few weeks, exactly about a month actually, on January 20th. I've never been more bullish. What happens between now and January 20th, in my opinion, is pretty largely irrelevant, in my opinion. I think you just need to if this is stressing you out, if you're panicking over every little dip, maybe just take a break for a few weeks, right? You don't have to get yourself all frustrated. You don't have to get all frustrated and upset with yourself just because we go down, just like Bitcoin has always done. I mean, are you aware of what Bitcoin has done in the past? That's pretty normal, right? We also see, if we take a look at this chart, the price of Bitcoin, you can see the bottoms in green, the tops in red. And I think there's a lot more room to run. It's the easiest way to put it. We also see that if you're worried about this if you're worried this is the end of the bull market, know this. In December of 2020, Bitcoin dumped 12% after witnessing a 77% rally in October and November. And then it went from 17,000 to 41,000, a 136% move in just a month. Something similar is happening right now with Bitcoin experiencing a 13% dip after a massive Q4. We could see another 10 to 15% correction. So again, there's no guarantee that this is the bottom, like short term, and that we're just going to go up from here. But as I've said a lot of times too, yeah, we could absolutely go down a little bit. And I'm going to talk about this in a second here. This is very big actually. But to be panicking here and thinking the whole bull market's over, you're just outing yourself as a complete beginner. You're outing yourself as somebody who doesn't really know how these markets work. You're also seeing don't give up on the Santa Claus rally too early. Bulls just saved the super trend for now. So you take a look at the super trend indicator. So that's something to consider. And we also see the Bitcoin daily candle is shaping up to be very bullish for the coming days. Long wicks on red days have led to strong price surges since September. Yeah, I mean, if we can actually form this wick and hold this wick, historically, that has not been a bad place to be bullish on the markets. Now, obviously, as I said yesterday, one of the major reasons, probably the biggest reason people are panicking and losing their minds isn't because of Bitcoin. It's more so because alts have been getting banged. And I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it because I talked about it a lot yesterday. But yeah, I mean, if Bitcoin's dumping, then alts are going to get banged. That's just how it goes. No surprise. But if we look at the daily chart for Bitcoin as well, you can see that we have fallen below the 21 and so far have bounced right on the quite literally exactly on the 50-day moving average. And it's a nice wick, actually. If we get a strong daily wick, look what the last few wicks, for example, have been. There have been daily wicks, but you can see the market trended up afterwards. Is there any fundamental reason why the market might trend up? Yeah, because in a month, the most pro crypto administration in the history of the world takes office. I would say that's relatively bullish. No? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Right? I don't know. I don't want to overcomplicate this because all of this is very short-term noise, and it's all short-term noise. I pull out this chart. I personally don't think this is around, and I'll highlight it again. This is around the period where I think we should expect the market to be topping out. And so that is to say, in my opinion, we're not even close yet. I mean, imagine, actually, and I think this is one of the most bullish things in my opinion, is that at the tops of markets, 99% of people, maybe not 99, but like most people, every time we get a pullback, will be telling you, okay, this is just a pullback and then we're going to go higher and higher. Is that what we just saw over the last 48 hours? Because I read a lot of comments from people telling me, bull market's done. It's over. It's done. That's what I got a lot of comments about that. Now, it's hard to gauge exactly like what percent of comments are bullish and what percent are bearish, but there's still a lot of fear, and there is still surprisingly a massive lack of exuberance and a massive lack of excitement. And we have never had a bull market top when people were this indifferent, when people were this somehow pessimistic on the market. And again, the reason people are so pessimistic right now on the market is very clear to me, and it's because of the most obvious thing, that just most people are very exposed to altcoins and have very little exposure to Bitcoin. And so if that's the case, yes, you are feeling these dumps much harder than people that are holding primarily Bitcoin or a lot of Bitcoin. These dumps hurt way more, right? If Bitcoin goes down 3% and your alts dump 20 to 30%, yeah, it's more painful to be in alts. And we are going to have an alt season at some point. However, again, I don't think, at least as of the most recent data is showing us, Bitcoin is probably going to push up more. And if Bitcoin just continues to suck liquidity out of the overall market, then that's what it does. And what that means is that alts don't perform insanely well until Bitcoin cools off and trades flat. But, you know, as you can see, the stock market having so far, at least on the day, a decent bounce. You can see the DXY looks like, I mean, that's a pretty red daily candle for the very first time since really December 4th, so a couple weeks. And it's because maybe this market overreacted a little bit to Jerome Powell's speech. Now, I'm hearing some debate of whether people are saying, oh, he wasn't even that hawkish, but for some reason everyone thought he was being very hawkish. Or let's say he was very hawkish, but he was just exaggerating his hawkishness because maybe he wanted to manufacture some panic in the market. Maybe he wanted to lean into this panic narrative for a little bit. Hey, I don't know. It's all just speculation. Nobody can know for sure, except a very few amount of people that are actually making the decisions, like Jerome Powell and people like that. But for the most part, if this dump over the last couple of days ends up, let's say, this is a weekly chart, let's say we end up doing something like this, or even like this, are you going to feel silly for selling right here and panicking right here? Yeah, yes, you'll feel silly. And it'll all be very obvious. And unfortunately, what's going to happen is, let's say we do something like this, and let's say this is what happens over the next 1 to 2 years. Unfortunately, the people that panic sold here are going to be panic buying right here, and they're going to be panic buying right here. And you know how that ends up, right? And then they're going to hate crypto for 2 to 3 years and wonder how it's possible they made no money and they got completely banged. It's because it's only one reason, because people lose their psychology over and over and over and over and over again. So stick to your thesis. I don't know. This dump isn't that crazy. We could still go lower. I've talked about it many times. Like, I think the ultimate floor is around 70 to 75,000 US dollars in terms of still maintaining bullish structure if we even got a pullback down there. But yeah, I mean, I would be hard pressed to, I just don't think that's the most likely scenario. I think Bitcoin's a little too bullish to go that low. If it did go that low, I would sell my house, potentially a body part, so that I could buy more crypto. And if you're interested in trading, sign up with FEMX or BITUNIX below. And without any further ado, that's it for me.